through the standard leads functionality, which has been introduced to colleague 7. Leads are available on the basis of a user group permission. So if there are certain users which shouldn't have access to leads, then ultimately on the basis of that user group permission, which is a leads permission folder, you can disable their view of leads and ultimately their ability to access a lead record. That also goes for the quick create option as well, to create a new lead. Based on that permission being denied, that option also won't appear as well. Now in terms of leads, they're searchable via the quick search. So if we typed in a lead title within here, it would include the lead within the search results of the quick search, and ultimately that gives you access to open up a lead there. Alternatively, obviously leads are available via the selection screen. The lead selection screen works effectively the same as the other selection screens for the main entity records, in that there is some standard criteria which will obviously allow you to search and find leads against the system or against the database. And the columns that you view within the lead search result are dictated by options. So you can obviously specify the options that you want to see against the lead records, and ultimately that's going to dictate what columns appear when you're looking through a search result. As it is with the other entity records as well, within the lead selection area there's an option to export out the results into a spreadsheet. Again, that's on the basis of a user group permission. So if you want to create a list of different leads, you can then export those out as you need to. So the purpose of a lead is to record a potential opportunity that may exist without the need of obviously creating a requirement against an existing company or contact. So it's possible to create a lead that's associated with an existing company or contact on the system, but it's also possible to create a lead which is essentially a standalone record, which isn't essentially linked with anything. It's just a known opportunity which you can then convert and create the corresponding records relevant to it at a later date. In terms of creating a new lead, that can be done from the create new option here, or it can be done from the quick create option here as well. So the option to create lead can be done in two different spots. When adding a new lead, first and foremost we specify a lead title. We can then specify a source where the lead came from, and we can also reference a status. Now both the source and the status are configurable drop-down lists, which the administrator will be able to configure as required based on the relevant sources that you retrieve your leads from and the necessary statuses obviously that you wish to put against your different leads. In terms of contacts, I'll just put an example contact there, and then we'll put example company there. Ultimately, if we don't want to associate them to existing records, we can just free text type in a name, a company as we need to. Same with location as well. It could be just that you're looking to enter in something quite vague as opposed to a specific address. You can also have the telephone number, the email address as well being referenced if you have that, or when you're referencing an existing record, it will then bring through their telephone number, their email address there as well, and I'll do that in a second. In terms of the currency that you're working, obviously that's referenced there. You can obviously put in a potential value that you might have in mind in relation to this lead if the lead was to play out and you were to convert it and win it. And then you can put an expected date also against the lead if you have a time frame in mind, whereas by which you should have either converted the lead or lost it within that window of time. So it's just put an idea of time frame against the lead. There is also a days open field as well, which is auto calculated on the creation date or from the creation date of the lead once it's been created. We'll then hit save there just to register our lead. So once our lead has been created, the main entity tabs will now open up, and that ultimately will give you the options that you find on all of the other main entity records, namely obviously the basic tab being a list of the standard fields that are associated with the record, but then also the history tab, which will be a track record of workflow that you run from the lead, but also any correspondence that you may have with anyone from that lead as well. So if you're sending emails from the lead, that will be recorded in history and also in receipt as well. Documents that you may have ultimately that you're storing associated with the lead can be stored here. Notes as well, free text notes about the lead, There's obviously a standard set of fields that are associated with the lead, but there's also a custom fields area, and again, any custom data that you wish to store that's relevant to your business can be stored within this area about the lead. There's also then a checklist, and again this works in the same way as the other checklists that are available throughout the system. Ultimately, the checklist in this scenario is a list of the different stages of the sales process, and ultimately it's all configurable by the administrator against the checklist area within the admin section. So if you want to configure it as you see fit, with it listing the different checklist items that are appropriate to your sales process, you can do so. And then as you're delivering each of those various different sales stages, you can obviously mark each item as complete as you go, and obviously store other information about that sales stage that you processed within this area. It's also worth noting as well that within the lead selection screen, there's the option of a latest stage. So when you're reviewing your leads, the latest stage will be essentially the last checklist item against that lead that was completed. So you can see at what stage you are potentially with the lead in terms of progressing it through the checklist. The requirements tab we'll come back to, but this is ultimately a list of all of the requirements that have been linked with the lead. So what we'll now look to do is assign an existing contact and company against the lead, so that we can then proceed with arranging or creating the requirement from the lead. Ultimately, obviously you could create a contact by clicking on this plus sign, or create a company by clicking on this plus sign, but we'll look up our contact here. We'll look up our company, and ultimately with the contact and the company created, we can then seek to create a requirement. Now with the requirement being created, obviously the contact's automatically assigned, the company is automatically assigned. We can then get specific about the job role, or what's being essentially created as our requirement. And obviously we can then save that. And when a requirement has been created from a lead, there is then an associated link between the requirement and the lead. So you have this lead linking back as an option, and obviously you can then click on that lead link to go back to your associated lead. If we then click on the lead link that's available on the requirement, that will take us back to our lead. On the requirements tab, you can see the requirements that have been created from the lead. So it's possible to create more than one requirement from a lead. It could be multiple requirements listed within here associated to the lead. From a reporting perspective, there is a new open leads dial which can be added to the user overview, and that will obviously show the leads that you have open associated with that user, and give you an overview of those different leads, and obviously an ability to click through into those leads as you need to. On the team overview, the lead option of leads, or the entity of leads, has been added within this area, and again that's the details of those leads are then included within the breakdown, again associated specifically to the user. And from a reporting perspective, from the consultant activity report, the new lead option has also been added there as well, so you can have a view of leads that have been registered against different users. There'll be further reporting that is added over time, and obviously functionality that is included and added over time against the leads entity based on feedback. But that's the new leads feature that's been added to Colleague 7.